Hello my friends, welcome to my channel. So today we're going to mod this Game Boy Advance JordiPower style. So we are going to perform the AGS-101 mod on this Game Boy Advance. What the fuck is that? The AGS-101 mod consists on putting the backlight screen of the Game Boy Advance SP into a classic Game Boy Advance. Why, you may ask? So yes, this was the best Game Boy, but its form factor was not very good. It was tiny, and when you put a classic Game Boy game inside, it gets in the way. Whereas the classic Game Boy Advance has the best form factor out there. The games came in the top and didn't get in the way, and the size was perfect. Besides, it has a classic audio jack and it works with batteries. So as you may know, the Game Boy Advance SP was the most advanced Game Boy Nintendo made, and there were two models. The AGS-101 with a front lit screen, not very good, and the AGS-101 with a backlit screen. You can also adjust the brightness. So this is the best screen and the one we're going to use. So let's see what we need to do this mod. The first thing is a working Game Boy Advance, obviously. So you can use all of it, or if it's not in a very good shape, you can purchase a new shell from eBay. And since I was going to tear it down, I also bought some rubber pads and a new glass screen, since the one that comes with the Game Boy is plastic. Then obviously you're going to need a replacement screen, so I'm going to salvage this one from a Game Boy Advance SP 101. The other option is to go to eBay or AliExpress and buy a replacement screen. This one is not original, okay? It is made in China, where theoretically the original has better quality, but this one may be cheaper, so it's your choice. Oh, by the way, I did a full comparison between the original AGS-101 screen and the Chinese one, so check it here. Then, since these screens were not made for this model, you are going to need a screen adapter. You can buy this on eBay or AliExpress. I write down all the details, don't worry guys. So before purchasing this, be aware there's two different models, depending on the Game Boy Advance you own. So let me show you how to differentiate between the two. To reveal the serial number of your Game Boy Advance, you have to take the battery cover out. Then, if your serial number starts with a 0, like in my case, you are going to need the 40-pin screen adapter. And if the serial number starts with 1, then you are going to need the 32-pin adapter. And finally, since you know I'm a big fan of Super NES colors, I decided to search for colored buttons. And I think these ones are going to be awesome in my new Game Boy Advance. Guys, in the description I'm going to put a menu with all the shortcuts so we can go from one step to another depending on your needs. Okay, so let's start by tearing down this Game Boy Advance SP and getting the screen out. Okay, so to start you are going to need to remove all these screw covers. So I advise you to use a needle for that job. Now we're going to proceed to take out these 4 screws. So we are going to need a Triwing tip. Here I'm using the Triwing with the size Y0. And finally take out this one. Then change your tip to a Phillips one and take out the battery cover. Here I use the Phillips with the size 00. So we can extract the battery. Then back to the Triwing and get this screw out. Okay, now we should be able to open the Game Boy Advance SP. Here's the motherboard. So now we're going to take out these 3 screws with the Triwing in order to be able to lift the motherboard. So take all the buttons and rubber pads out, and now just disconnect the screen by opening these little plastic doors. Perfect. Now you can put this thing aside, you won't need it. So now we are going to take out this hidden screw and these 5 others to tear down the screen. So as you see, this last screw was holding down a piece that covers the hinge. Once it's done, close the screen and take the cover out. So now you can extract the screen and carefully peel off the protective lens. Okay. Now be extra careful because the screen is no longer protected, so avoid fingerprints and don't damage it. Okay, now it's time to take this apart. To start, remove the battery cover. Now we're going to take out these 6 screws. Here, ideally, you want to use the Triwing with the size Y1, but the Y0 from the Game Boy Advance SP will also work. Let's take out this one. Now let's change to a Philips size 1, but the 00 used on the Game Boy Advance SP will also do the job. Then we can open the Game Boy Advance and start removing some buttons. It's now time to disconnect the screen. So, like for the Game Boy Advance SP, just disconnect this ribbon cable, opening the 2 windows. It could be useful to use some tweezers. Now we are going to take out these 3 screws in order to lift the motherboard. Now take the buttons and the rubber pads out and use some tool as a lever to lift off the screen. Perfect. Now take off this double-sided tape. We're not going to use it because it's too thick. Now, as you see, this lens cover is scratched. So here's the new glass screen I'm going to use. The previous one was plastic. So if you want to replace the lens or paint your shell, you're going to remove the lens screen. To do that, just push a little from the back and it should come out. So here's the naked shell. Oh, beware to take out the battery indicator piece. Now to the other part of the shell. Since we're going to paint this one, we're going to need to remove the battery contacts, the cartridge protector, and the sticker. So to remove the sticker without damaging it, you just need to heat it with a hair dryer. There you go. So now let's try to put the AGS-101 screen on the shell. What we see is that it can't sit like it should. These plastic parts don't let it. So we're going to have to remove them. So we're going to need to scrap this part here and the big one there. So for you guys to see exactly what we're going to need to remove, I'm going to tag them with a permanent pen. So to scrap these plastic parts, you're going to need a cutter. And if you have one of these flat blades, the better. They work like a charm. So protect the shell from scratches and protect yourself with some gloves. Guys, don't cut yourselves. Now let's go. Carefully scrap all the marked parts, little by little. The blade should be enough sharp to cut through the plastic. Don't rush it, guys. Now that's the result we're looking for. A flat surface. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be pretty flat. Okay, so let's try now. Perfect, it sits flat. So later, when you align the screen, you'll have to make sure it is centered. Okay, so as you know, we're going for a Super NES then Game Boy Advance. So since the original controller is grey and these things are white, we're going to need to paint them. So when you want to paint this, you have 2 problems. The first one is the color, and the second one is the type of paint. So, as far as paint, the best option is automotive paint. It's the most resistant to scratches and wear. And since you're going to play this a lot, you need a strong paint. And then you need the exact color. So, if in a shop you can't find a gray that matches your controller, you'll need someone to make that exact color for you. Alright, when you're talking colors, either for paint or ink, you have several standards. One of the most known is Pantone. Okay, so I did some research and I found out that the Pantone that matches this light gray is the Pantone 421. So, when I looked for automotive paint with a custom color, I saw they were using a different standard. This one is called RAL, R-A-L. It's a European standard, so maybe yours can be different. And for the RAL, what you have to get is 7035. So what I did is go online and look for a website doing customized kits to repair your car. And I ordered my paint. So as you can see, this one is RAL 7035. That's the color that best matches the Super NES gray. Then in this kit there also was lacquer or varnish, okay? This is what is going to get the strength to the paint, as this is not scratch resistant. You need to apply this on the top. But bear with me guys, since we are painting plastic and these things haven't been done for plastic, what you'll need is a plastic primer. This thing is the thing you are going to apply first on the plastic before applying the paint. And once the paint is applied, what you're going to do is apply the varnish. So it's a 3 steps process. Alright guys, I know this is kind of difficult, so what I did is a different tutorial where I explain everything in depth. So you can check the how-to in here. Alright, so let's start applying the plastic primer on the shell. So I finished applying the plastic primer, so you see it's transparent, and now let's apply the paint. So I finished applying the paint, it's already dry, and the color is pretty good. Here's the original controller, and here's the shell we painted. Okay, I know this gray is a little lighter, but it also depends on the light, but I think it will do greatly. And for you to compare, here is the original shell. Not bad. Alright, so time to apply the lacquer. So in here, as you can see, I went for a matte lacquer. So it's up to you guys. Okay, so we just finished applying the lacquer and everything is dry. So take a look. Here we have the shell. So the matte varnish worked pretty well. In fact, it was more satinated after painting them, and the matte finish got rid of some of the glares. So the color is pretty good. And here you can see the difference between the original white and the gray we used. Okay, so now the paint job is finished, we are going to assemble the inner parts, the screen, the adapter and the mainboard, and put everything back in the shell again. So here's the screen adapter, so we are going to connect the screen in here and this part to the motherboard. So let's start by doing this. So now with some tweezers, just close these doors. Be careful not to break anything. So this is the brightness switch. So not all the adapters have it, but the ones who do also have this cable that must be soldered to the motherboard in order to get extra brightness to the screen. So what you need to do is solder this wire to the upper left leg of the transistor DA1, just the way I show you here. It's not obligatory since this adapter works without soldering it, but you'll get more brightness. Now just wrap the cable around the capacitors so it doesn't get in the way. Also you can use some tape to secure the cable. Now let's get to our screen. If you salvage the screen from the Game Boy Advance SP, we are going to need to remove this foam in order to get the thickness down. That's because the screen adapter takes a lot of place and we need the overall thickness down in order to have the shell close correctly without too much pressure. In here I decided to use my fingernails, because losing the control of a tool could damage the screen. Now just get rid of the dust on the screen. In this case I use this pen designed for cleaning camera lenses. Avoid touching the screen with fingers and don't use paper, cause it could scratch the screen. Here what I decided to do is paint the borders of the screen. because when you put the lens on, depending on the angle, you can see the white borders, so this way it's more discreet. Now let's put on the new screen cover. These screens should come with double tape, so just peel the protective film and apply them. Here you can see what I meant with the white borders showing up. So now let's position the screen. In here I didn't do it, but I think it's a good idea applying some double tape like the foam we peeled, but thinner, so the screen doesn't move and the dust doesn't come in. Now we're going to peel out one of these insulating covers in order to get the thickness down a little bit more. Okay, now let's install the buttons and the rubber pads. Oh man, I love this color scheme. Okay, so for the rubber pads, be aware that there are some notches that need to be respected. A and B buttons, and pause and select. Alright, and don't forget the battery indicator. Now when connecting the screen to the screen adapter, be aware of the side, so the brown color has to be up. Then to install the adapter on the shell, take a look at these two notches, since they are going to be used to fix the adapter to the shell. Now just fold the ribbon cable and use some tape to fix it. Now as far as the brightness switch, you'll need to position it this way so it is accessible through this shell hole. Now let's put the motherboard back and take care of the cable so it doesn't get in the way of the cartridges. Now let's put the 3 screws on the motherboard. Okay, let's position the cartridge protector. Now let's put the power button and the side pieces. So this one goes to the right and this one to the left. Right button and now the left one. Okay, now let's put back the battery contacts. And we can now close the shell. Take care the wire you soldered doesn't get in the way when you close the shell. And make sure the brightness switch fits in the hole. And now let's screw the back part of the shell. Finally, let's put the last screw in. This one is black and fits in the battery compartment. Now let's put the battery cover. And the last step is to take care of the sticker. So if you don't have the original one, you can buy some copies on eBay. Okay, perfect. And we are done, guys. Wow, it's really amazing. Okay, so if you don't like the Super Famicom color scheme, you can always go for the US Super NES style. Now let's put some batteries on this bad boy. And of course, what better game than Metroid Zero Mission to test this Game Boy out? Okay, now the moment of truth. Oh yeah! Okay, let's go, Samus. Yeah. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked this mod and that my tips were useful. Thumbs up if you did, and subscribe for more awesomeness. Thanks for watching, guys, and may the power always be with you. Take care, and see you in the next vid. Now, if you want more details about this mod, you can check in here the paint tutorial, and in here the screen comparison between the Chinese version of the screen and the original one. And you can subscribe to me in here. Go ahead. Click somewhere. Click it! And subscribe.